football has come on leaps and bounds since 2010 Barcelona. Less technically astute teams have a myriad of tactics to overcome relatively better teams, allowing them to test even the very best teams' defensive IQ, which is exemplified by Gutierrez and Girona. Let's get into it. Starting here from Felix's foul or offside off the corner kick, we get to see Girona building up in this 3-1 deep versus what is essentially a 4-1-4-1 or 3-2-4-1 press, man marking by Barcelona. We can see Lewandowski looking to try and cut the pitch in half, inviting Girona to play towards their right-hand side, hoping that the fact that Felix on the left-hand side being higher up the pitch will help Barca to be able to pin Girona in this corner. Girona prefer to play down the left-hand side, so this more aggressive positioning by Barcelona could be for that reason as well. Gazzaniga and the rest of his defence were always happy to play long over Barcelona's first line of their press into Dovbyk or Tsygankov or Coutu, who would try and drop on this right-hand side. So we can see that Coutu dropped a bit on that right-hand side, whereas Dovbyk and Tsygankov are looking to try and work in tandem here centrally. I really need to praise their partnership because they had great chemistry with each other and excellent pace in behind. Note also Cancelo's position, who was typically higher up on that left-hand side to support Felix and prevent Martin and Garcia from being able to escape on this right-hand side, especially Martin, who was a really great ball carrier. Just as many top sides do, Girona looked to try and force Barcelona into continuing to retreat, eventually leading us to see Barca set up into this 3-2 shape deep, which is similar to their build-up from their goalkeeper, and we get to see Girona man marking to try and force an error in Barcelona's defensive third. We also get to see how the Girona defense had to try and track forwards in behind the press. These forwards dropping were typically Pedri and Felix, who when Barca were playing a 2-4-2-2 had Felix and Pedri as the top of the box. And of course, being at the top of the box, it made life very difficult for Blind, Lopez and Garcia. We can see some of that difficulty here with Rafinha able to drive inside, and we see the disarray of Girona's back line with our left-sided centre-back really high up the pitch, our left wing-back inside trying to stay somewhat with Rafinha, and the rest of our defence all looking to try and retreat. Fortunately for Girona, Garcia regains possession, and just as in the previous deep build-up, Girona looked to play over the Barcelona press into Dovbyk, who was exceptionally good at dropping off the defensive line to then try and link up with supporting players. Again, note Cancelo's position high up the pitch, supporting the counter press, tracking Coutu, trying to help Barcelona really narrow the pitch, condense space and try and regain possession in Girona's defensive third. However, Michel's side was extremely clinical in their passes despite the pressure, allowing them to eventually escape on this left-hand side through Gutierrez. And with Gutierrez's through ball for Tsygankov, the marauding right midfielder who essentially is playing as a number 10 or second forward, we get to see one of those extremely dangerous attacks in transition, led by Dovbyk and Tsygankov and supported with numerous runners. Unfortunately, Tsygankov's shot is relatively tame, allowing Beñat to easily save it, and of course Beñat, just as Gazzaniga sought to do throughout the game, looks for a quick distribution, a quick throw out to one of his defenders to avoid our position's press. From here we're going to skip ahead. We're going to have a look at Barca regaining possession after Gazzaniga looking to try and escape in that right hand side channel with a longer ball into Coutu, Dovbyk, Tsygankov. Fortunately for Barcelona, they get in possession and we get to see part of that 3-2 shape with Gundogan and De Jong in the centre midfield, although Gundogan is liable to push higher up the pitch with just De Jong as the number 6. With Gundogan pushing higher, that led to Barca having 3 number 8s with João Felix also narrowing from that left wing position, allowing João Cancelo to be able to push into left wing instead. This allows us to eventually see Barcelona in that midfield shape with João Cancelo and Rafinha holding the width, Koundé being the more defensive fullback, staying deeper as the right-sided centre-back, although on occasion he did make overlapping runs beyond Rafinha to try and create space so that Rafinha could drive inside, typically also coupled with underlapping runs by Pedri, again to create that space centrally so that Rafinha could combine with the likes of Pedri or Lewandowski. Note here how Xavi is trying to get out to Koundé. Girona tried to press towards Christensen or Koundé, these wide centre-backs, when they could, to try and force Barcelona into retreating. Barca don't retreat, and instead we get a really nice incisive pass through the lines by Gundogan for our number 8 and centre forward centrally between the lines to try and combine. These quick 1-2s and runs off the ball were exceptionally dangerous. Unfortunately, Girona's defenders always stuck to their task and defended these crosses and cutbacks. Moving on to the 70th minute, we've got a Barcelona throw-in with a number of substitutions to rejuvenate the team and hopefully take all 3 points. Barca are still playing in that 3-2 shape, although now Balde is that left-sided centre-back, and there's a little bit more flexibility in the positioning of Pedri and Gundogan, with them here having swapped, although De Jong is still playing as that number 6. Further note on Balde, he was a lot more attacking than Christensen, actually sometimes swapping with Cancelo and playing as that more marauding left back, with Cancelo then dropping to play as the left-sided centre-back. Of course, Barca was still trying to utilise their 2 number 8s narrow with Lewandowski, but Girona were just having none of it. They're able to regain possession, and despite Barcelona's substitutions, there's not much urgency in the Barcelona counter-press, so that just as with Girona's build-up from their goalkeeper, they're able to exploit the spaces created by their forwards dropping off the line, allowing them on this occasion through Portu, Gutierrez and Dovbyk to be able to beat this initial Barca counter-press. And then through their transition, they force Barcelona into resetting themselves. And with that, we get to see Girona set up in their 3-2 shape versus Barcelona in their 4-1 shape. And here I just want to emphasize the role that Xavi has given to De Jong and how it will lead to Girona being able to exploit space centrally. I do want to excuse De Jong slightly just because Rafinha's position during these defensive phases was typically overly optimistic, often positioning higher than necessary to try and prevent these passes into Gutierrez, who's constantly positioning inverted and just behind Rafinha, just as we saw with the previous example. And so we get to see that 3-2 shape and forward dropping off the line, in this case Zigankov, as Girona look to try and overload this left-hand side. Just as with Cancelo and Rafinha, Savio and Couto are holding the width for Girona, meaning that if Girona's overload in this left-hand side is handled well, they'll always give Girona the option to be able to switch the ball out towards Couto on the right-hand side. And so we see through a number of rotations on this left-hand side, with Gutierrez ending up as one of the most advanced players, dragging De Jong quite deep here, creating the significant amount of space I referenced earlier for the likes of Martin, Dovbyk, Gutierrez, all to exploit. Of course, Barca continue to try and compress that space, which essentially invites Girona to eventually switch the play out towards Couto on the right hand side. And with that, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, consider sharing it on social media, subscribing. Let me know what you think of Girona's tactics, and with that, we're out.